My friends, the shot you're about to hear is not just the combustion of a rocket engine. It's the exact sound of an 80-year-old taboo being shattered to dust in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Because Tokyo's historic pacifist silence has just been shattered. The footage of the Japanese destroyer Chokai launching its first Tomahawk cruise missile into the sky marks the moment when global geopolitics shifted. Japan has definitively abandoned its policy of an impenetrable shield and for the first time since World War II has taken up the sword. And what you're witnessing is not just a ballistic test. It's Japan activating one of the weapons that China fears the most and sending a clear warning to Beijing. The South China Sea is no longer a safe buffer. The wall is now mobile, lethal, and capable of reaching thousands of kilometers deep into the Asian continent. And to understand the impact of this tactical launch in the middle of the ocean with full logistical support from the United States Navy, we need to dissect the architecture of Japanese engineering that made this possible. We're talking about the JS Chokai, the DDG-176, a naval colossus of the Kongo-class. Because for decades, these ships have been seen around the world as the great shields of the nation. They are equipped with the famous Aegis combat system. Forget the idea of a regular radar blinking on a green screen. Aegis is the eye of God in modern warfare. It's an electronic brain capable of scanning hundreds of kilometers of airspace, tracking dozens of enemy ballistic missiles simultaneously, calculating interception routes, and protecting the fleet. Until now, the destroyer Chokai only looked up to shoot down anything that threatened Japan. The integration of the Tomahawk changes at the molecular level of this ship. It has gone from being an interceptor of threats to becoming a platform for projecting lethal surface strike power. The Eye of God has finally gained long-range fists, and the real game changer is in the details. Japan is only the third country in the world outside the United States to have authorization and technical capability to launch the Tomahawk missile from a surface combat ship. Australia and the Netherlands have this capability on land, while the once all-powerful Royal Navy now only launches them from hidden submarines. But why did Japan bet on the surface fleet? My friends, because ships don't just kill, they make their presence felt, they patrol, and above all, they send the message of strength that Beijing was trying to monopolize in the region. Don't you agree? Almost $1 billion to buy 400 American missiles if they're just basic rockets. You buy the Tomahawk because it's the historic executioner of dictatorships and the ultimate opening weapon for any symmetrical war. And if you go back to the archives of the Gulf War in 1991 and later the invasion of Iraq, you'll see that it was the Tomahawks launched from the Red Sea and the Gulf that dismantled Saddam Hussein's palaces, the power grid, and the anti-aircraft radars. Even before the first fighter jet crossed the border, they don't fall randomly. They have an insane ability to fly low and literally go in through the designated window. But Japan didn't buy the old desert variants. They secured access to the Block 4 and Block 5 versions. Tomahawk Block 4, weighing 1,500 kg with a brutal 450 kg unitary explosive warhead, it can skim just above the sea for almost 1,600 kilometers from the launching ship. In practice, this means that Chokai can be far beyond the horizon, safe in the Pacific, and the missile can still hit vital targets at the Chinese naval base with pinpoint accuracy. Even more frightening for Japan's enemies is the Block 5 version. Forget about the static target, Block 5. It is equipped with an advanced infrared image-seeking system which allows it to change its trajectory during flight. It scans contested areas, identifies new targets of opportunity as they appear, and hunts down moving enemy warships. It's the conversion of a land attack missile into a naval predator. That's why China is panicking. It's the nightmare of any Chinese invasion fleet trying to cross the Taiwan Strait. The purchase of Tomahawks is not just a line item in the defense budget. It's the most drastic change in Japan's constitution and security policy since the signing of the surrender in 1945 aboard the American battleship USS Missouri. After the nuclear trauma and devastation of World War II, Japan rose to become the world's second largest economy. For many years, it swore by absolute pacifism. The armed forces were renamed the Self-Defense Forces, and the stance was crystal clear. We have the shield. If you come to attack us, we defend ourselves. But reality came knocking. The violent expansion and brutal imperialism of China in the Indo-Pacific, claiming islands and international waters as if they were a private Chinese lake, combined with the constant and hysterical terror from North Korea. Testing ballistic missiles over Japanese cities forced the sleeping samurai to draw his katana once again. Japan has declared that having counterattack capability is now vital. They are not planning invasions, but they have established the doctrine of devastating retaliation. If China or any other adversary considers firing at Japanese soil, the destroyers, Aegis, and the land bases will have the mathematical and ballistic capability to annihilate enemy launchers and command centers on foreign soil, even before the second wave of attacks. It's not just at sea that politics is turned into steel. In a gigantic project of offensive power disguised as defense, Japan took its Izumo-class helicopter carriers, the JS Izumo and the JS Kaga, with flat decks originally designed for search and rescue and light patrol, and converted them into true fixed-wing aircraft carriers. The deck was thermally reinforced to withstand the extreme heat from the exhaust. And why? To operate 5th-generation stealth fighters, the F-35B Lightning II. Japan can now launch stealth fighters that are invisible to radar directly from the ocean, thousands of kilometers away from its islands. But if you think Japan's power projection is limited only to the sea, look to the skies. Japan has also secured the acquisition of the JSSM missile. Note what this weapon's impact translates to. Although it has a shorter range than the Tomahawk, it is designed to be launched by fighter jets. In practice, this means that the Japanese Air Force no longer needs to carry out suicide missions crossing the enemy's fortified airspace. A fighter jet can take off, fire the JASSM from hundreds of kilometers away at Chinese vessels or anti-aircraft batteries, and turn back to base before Beijing's radar even realizes that death is already in the air. But if you think the 400 Tomahawks bought from the Pentagon are Beijing's biggest security problem, you have no idea what Japan is hiding in its own military engineering laboratories. The Tomahawk, with all its legendary history in the Gulf War and now recently in the war against Iran, is openly regarded by Tokyo as only a temporary stopgap weapon. It fills the current gap while the engines of Japan's war industries turn to achieve ultimate self-sufficiency. Japan is already accelerating a lethal long-range project made in-house. They are massively upgrading their own Type 12 anti-ship missile. What was once a coastal defense is now being transformed into a stealth platform to cross the seas, hunt top Chinese ships, and pulverize land targets with local Japanese electronic intelligence. But the weapon that promises to melt enemy radars is the hypersonic glide vehicle projects. Japan is combining the brutal power of ballistic missile launches with cutting-edge hypersonic glide vehicle technology. This means firing a warhead that rises into the atmosphere and glides back to the target at speeds absurdly higher than Mach 5, performing sharp and violent maneuvers, making it almost mathematically impossible to be intercepted by any known defense system from China or Russia. Japan is quietly working to transform the old defensive constraints into an unstoppable offensive structure based on silicon, hypersonic speed, and lethality. And if you understand that 21st century geopolitics won't be decided in UN forums, but by those who have the ability to project fire and steel invisibly, make your presence known right now in the comments. Scroll down and record the keywords from our analysis today. End of the shield, sharp katana. I repeat, end of the shield, sharp katana. Because the perfect launch of the Tomahawk from JS Chokai in the Pacific, supported by teams from the San Diego Naval Base in the United States, was not just an isolated mechanical test to see if the Mk-41 VLS cells could fire the missile without setting the ship on fire. It was the absolute confirmation of a combat integration between the United States and the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. It's the ultimate merging of the fleets. China believed its own propaganda. They swore that the West was tired, weak, and lulled to sleep by its own political and cultural divisions, and that Japan would remain forever tamed by the trauma of World War II. Xi Jinping's bet was to pressure, strangle, and slowly expand until total domination of the Pacific. But as they crushed the perimeter and increased their aggression, they discovered the harsh reality. They didn't find a sleeping West. They found a technological fortress that had just activated all its weapon systems. An insurmountable barrier moving rapidly. Japan invested about $700 million more just to modify and armor another 4 Aegis destroyers: Kirishima, Haguro, Miyako, and Atako, with the lethal objective of integrating them into this Tomahawk missile squadron. Japan is no longer just defending itself from diplomatic slights, it's projecting unquestionable force. This is very serious. What's sailing today is just the warm-up for the Japanese defense industry. Japan has already started building 2 real naval monsters, the so-called ASEVs, Aegis system-equipped vessels. The Aegis system-equipped vessels. These giants, scheduled to launch in 2027 and 2028, were primarily designed as floating fortresses to intercept ballistic missiles outside the atmosphere. However, the Japanese Ministry of Defense's confirmation changes everything. These colossi will be built from the outset with software and hardware architecture ready to launch Tomahawk missiles. It's no longer about adapting old ships. It's the engineering of offensive warfare being ordered, welded, and built in broad daylight, projecting total dominance for the next decade. This forces us to face the big strategic question that will dominate the next decade. With Japanese aircraft carriers patrolling the waters, equipped with F-35Bs, the Kongo-class destroyers loaded with Tomahawks capable of pulverizing ports on the continent, and the laboratories in Tokyo. With hypersonic projectiles nearing deployment, the feared invasion of Taiwan has not become a military and logistical suicide that is incalculable for Beijing's ambitions. In the relentless chess game of geopolitics, Japan understood that remaining silent and purely defensive means being swallowed up. And then I ask you, what about Brazil? When will Brazil wake up and understand the urgency of defending its territory, one of the richest territories on the planet? When will we finally be able to defend our sovereignty? When will we be able to stop the enemies of the West from invading our waters and taking our riches? My friend, the 2026 elections are coming, and I want you to think hard about this. And in the business market, the mechanics are exactly the same. Today, the most valuable currency in the world is attention. And for you, entrepreneur or top professional, what hurts the most is being the best at what you do and still remaining invisible. Do you have a great business? Top-tier expertise? But almost no one knows you exist. Have you noticed how hard it is to compete for attention when only silly dances and pointless memes seem to go viral? 15 years ago, I realized that authority requires a lethal strategy. Today, validated by 50 million views every month on my social media, the method is mathematical. And that's why I'm recruiting those who are excellent but live in the shadows. It's your time to break out, be recognized at the highest level, and monetize your expertise on the platform. The game now allows it, and those who understood this have tripled their sales in recent years. Your identity cannot be outsourced. The owner needs to put himself out there and set the vision. The time is over, my friends, when just recording with your phone any way you want was enough to sell, was enough to solve things. Not anymore. The market demands extreme professionalism. That's why on August 16th, I will hold a fully in-person immersion event here in my studio. I will personally guide you in building your authority. Look, the QR code is on the screen. and the secure link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. But I will be blunt about reality. There are only a few spots left, only 3. And when the last one is taken, the steel door closes and that's it. Don't miss the opportunity to speak, to talk to those who do and get results. I'll be waiting for you. A fantastic series premiered on streaming platforms, and the first episode perfectly portrays the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Fantastic, and for you to check it out, I'll share the recommendati on our channel with series and movie recommendations. Just click the link in the video description, in the first pinned comment, and on the card. Check out our channel with series and movie recommendations. Now subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Leave your like because it takes work to bring this to you. Blend your mind. Yeah, my friends, and if you want to get this exclusive content before everyone else, become a member of our channel. I'm Shimon Oliveira, and I'll see you at our next meeting. See you then.